9 minutes to 8. Well, you might remember the fuss when it became clear that millions of adults working with children or vulnerable people in England and Wales would have to go through extensive vetting and monitoring. A whole system was set up after the Sir murders. A new independent safeguarding authority was created to oversee it all. Well, that regime has never been fully implemented, but under a new Freedom Bill, it is being significantly scaled back. The independent safeguarding authority will become part of the Criminal Records Bureau. Well, let's take stock of this scaling back with Anne-Marie Carey, Chief Executive of Barnardos, and Mark Williams-Thomas, who's a child protection expert. Good morning to you both.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Anne-Marie Carey, can you just explain how much of a scaling back this is, what difference it is going to make, given that the other system hadn't actually been fully implemented?
Well, first of all, there is absolutely no compromise in this new system about those adults who will have substantial unsupervised access to children. They will still have enormous vetting and checks on them. But what it will give freedom to is where there are community volunteers, parents, grandparents and others who, under the supervision of teachers and others, come in to help children with their reading, etc. There is no longer a requirement for those adults to be vetted in the same way.
So, and Mark Williams-Thomas, that summary you agree with, I assume, that it is effectively the people who are not full-time with children, but who may come into contact with them from time to time.
Well, what we don't know is where that level is being drawn at this present moment in time. It changed obviously from a month to a week. We don't know where that level is. It's meant to be an intense level, and the figures that they're talking about is saying that 9 million now won't be caught. So I'm making an assumption when they started with a 12 million that there's probably about 3 million that it will catch.
So we'll still be several million, but people who are more time. Now, Anne-Marie Carey, do you feel this is a better system than the one that was introduced or was planned to be introduced after Sir?
I do, because I believe that it makes a presumption that those who give up their time voluntarily to work under supervision in schools, in youth clubs, on school sports days, actually do it in the best interests of children and do it in good faith. But those who are paid and who have no supervision and have access to children will be properly vetted.
Right, so you're very happy with this, and people were very critical, weren't they? And so you think this is common sense reform?
I completely accept that this is common sense reform. One of the things that has not been discussed is the portability of CRB checks. I mean, we had a ludicrous system where a supply teacher who went into 4 different schools had to have a CRB check for every single school that they worked in. They couldn't take the check that they had and use it in 4 different settings.
They couldn't get a passport.
No.
Well, Mark Williams-Thomas, I know you have concerns about what the government is doing. Before we go on to those, do you accept that there was, if you like, sort of red tape that said you couldn't carry one CRB check to another school? Do you accept that smoothing out some of those is a good idea?
I think the one thing that we will agree on today is portability is a significant issue and clearly needs to be addressed. It's been an issue that's been existing right from the very beginning and does need to be dealt with.
Right, so that one we're all on agreement on. Good. Now tell me what your concerns are with what the government's doing.
Well, this isn't about safeguarding children. This is about saving money, and this is about pandering to individuals who feel that it's inappropriate or too much of an ask to do a CRB check. Let me deal first of all with the saving money issue. That is about amalgamating the existing ISA with CRB, creating a new body, enabling the government to get out of existing contracts that are there, therefore saving the money. So this isn't about safeguarding.
Right, there's nothing wrong with saving money, incidentally, is there? I mean, we
Nothing
haven't
wrong with
got that much of it, so let's save it if we can.
Nothing wrong with saving money, as long as we then don't say that this is about safeguarding children. These are 2 very separate things, or vulnerable adults. But let's go to the key point. The key point here is now we know more than we ever have done about how offenders operate. Offenders are very deviant, they're very calculated, and they will seek out opportunities. And what they will do is they will go to where those opportunities exist, where those checks don't exist. And we had an awful lot made about authors who were saying going to school was inappropriate. Well, let me remind you of the case in 2004 of William Main, who was convicted of numerous offences against young children. He was an author going to school, reading with young girls. At the time, he was convicted of a number of offences, but there was certainly evidence to say that he'd abused in excess of 100 children that he'd gone into, gained contact with, whilst reading with them in schools. So anybody that comes along and says that from an author's point of view that would be wrong to be a CRB, let me remind you of that case.
And your contention is that case, William Main, would not have been picked up by this latest change, but would have been picked up if we had the full scheme
Well, when CRBs first started, I thought that people probably wouldn't submit to it if they had a cause for concern that was on CRB. That didn't come true, because actually people do submit. There is another very significant difference in this process, and that is that applicants will receive the CRB prior to the employer. So what ends up happening is that they receive the CRB with the information on it. That information may be significant that would cause the employer to stop them working with children.
Right. Anne-Marie, I need to give you a comment in answer to all of that.
Well, actually, systems do not safeguard children. With all the systems that we have in place, systems do not safeguard children. It is people being alert and being vigilant. We have, I could cite numerous cases where people have been vetted, have been cleared, but actually they have then gone on to abuse children. We need to look at inappropriate behaviours, inappropriate contact, inappropriate grooming of children. To put all of our faith in a system is actually to miss the signs that people are actually targeting and grooming children.
All right. Well, Anne-Marie Carey from Barnardos and Mark Williams Thomas, thank you both very much indeed.